Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Pokemon Pocket deck profile for you, coming at you with another Magnezone deck. This time we're on Hitmonlee slash Marshadow slash fighting, whatever you want to call it, with Magnezone. Our list is 2 Magnemite, 2 Magneton, 2 Magnezone, 2 Hitmonlee, 1 Hitmonchan, 2 Marshadow, 2 X-Speed, 2 Pokeball, 1 Pokemon Communication, 2 Professor's Research, and 2 Cyrus. Do note the Magnemite we're using is the one from the latest set. Space-Time Smackdown, that's what it's called. This is definitely the Magnemite you should be using if you're not on Electric Energy. I see some people out there on Genetic Apex Magnemite in, like, Darkrai decks, and it's like, why? So, anyway. Yeah, so for this first opponent, all we really see from them is going to be the Magnezone line, so I don't really know if they were on Darkrai or a different deck, because... and, you know, we were one of them. There are many meta-relevant decks out there centered around Magnezone. Magnezone, alongside Darkrai, actually one of the more breakout cards from the Space-Time Smackdown expansion. Turns out all Magneton needed to be really broken for its ability was a good outlet to put those energy to use for. And even 110 damage is definitely enough of an incentive. So what uniquely this build has over other Magnezone builds is the Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee's ability to attack Pokemon on the bench lets it bypass, the Druddigon, which is very common nowadays, or really any active Pokemon with like a Rocky helmet on it. And moreover, you can combine that with Cyrus to Hitmonlee damage something, then on the next turn swap into a Magnezone, Cyrus to pull out whatever you damaged, then drop a Thunder Blast on it and KO it. That's very easy to do. That adds up to 140. That's enough to KO Darkrai, among other meta-relevant mons, like Magnezone, also has 140 HP. So, yeah, you can definitely see how this all sort of comes together. Yeah, it's funny how this meta is kind of playing out, where the majority of decks seem to feature some combination of Magnezone, Darkrai, Greninja, Druddigon. We have all of these Pokemon that can basically deal damage independent of whatever your main energy source is. That's why these, sort of engines, so to speak, it's kind of what we call, card packages in Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? We call them engines. So you have, like, the Magnezone engine, right? The Darkrai, well, Darkrai is just like a standalone card. But you also have, like, Druddigon, and I guess that's also a standalone card. My point being that... these are all very flexible, and because none of them rely on whatever your main energy source is, they can be splashed into a number of different strategies. Okay, now here, we've been attacking this Magneton here, and as you can see, it's very nice that we're able to do so, as we're able to pull it out from the bench with the Cyrus, if we needed to. It's still in the active slot right now, but... the Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee combination is very nice, as you've been seeing in this first game. The flexibility to be able to hit either the active or the bench for 30 is very, very good. All of the fighting Pokemon have a retreat cost of 1. That's very nice. And also, on top of that, again, Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee at least have a very low energy attack requirement. Magnezone also is very self-sufficient in that regard. Marshadow is really the only thing you have to build up to, and even that's only 2 energy. As a result, this ends up being, although it's like kind of a setup deck with the Magnezone, still a very aggressive style of deck here. And, of course, if you happen to run into the Gyarados matchup, you can just one-shot their Magikarps from the bench with Hitmonlee, which is very nice. But I haven't seen Gyarados around in forever. And if you look at, the popularity rating on the, what is this site called again? It's Play Limitless TCG. They have the kind of tournament meta tier list that I'm always referencing. And although it's one of the more popular decks, I will say Gyarados Greninja is also one of the lower win rate decks if you look at like the top 15 or so most popular builds right now. Alright, this is a little bit of an awkward opening hand. Marshadow and Magnemite are both things that you actually want to be on the bench, but again, you know, it has a retreat cost of 1, so it's not that big a deal. Our opponent this time is going to be on an Aerodactyl deck, so it's got a lot of the similar hallmarks that our deck has of Hitmonlee and Marshadow, but they're playing, you know, Lucario and Aerodactyl as opposed to Magnezone. And as cool as Aerodactyl is, and Lucario, I think Lucario is also very cool. Magnezone is just really, really good. Magnezone is just kind of like ridiculously OP. I think that if Pokemon Pocket were more interested in gameplay balancing, one way they could balance or nerf the Magnezone line without doing too much to it is simply requiring that for Magneton's ability, you actually are playing Lightning Energy, right? That would definitely at the very least, isolate Magnezone to Lightning decks, which is, like, you know, arguably fine. This is always so disgusting when you can get both Magnetons going at the same time here, like we're doing here. Yeah, it looks like our opponent's also playing Mankey and Primeape as well. We actually covered this deck last season as well. Season, I guess, I mean, around the time Mythical Islands was out. Well, obviously, without the Lucario. Actually, did we play an Aerodactyl build with Lucario? We played... Oh, no, we played Rampardos with Lucario. I was going to say, I know we played some amount of Lucario, but I couldn't remember exactly what the build was for a second. We played Lucario with Rampardos, which I think is probably the best Lucario deck nowadays. This is something that a friend and I were talking about recently, actually, is the notable power creep in the game. Like, again, if you look at, like, the top 20 or so most popular decks, most of the ones that are under 50% win rate are stuff from previous metas, like Charizard Moltres, Gyarados Greninja, Celebi Superior, Mewtwo Gardevoir. Whereas, you know, a lot of these newer meta decks, like the Darkrai decks, I guess to be fair, Executor Celebi is like the best deck right now, and that's not playing new stuff, but it's also because it directly counters the Darkrai. Yeah, there's definitely a noticeable power creep, like, even from set to set. Kind of makes me a little bit anxious almost in a way about the mini expansion that's supposed to be coming out soon. I've heard rumors that there's a mini expansion that's coming out at the end of the month. So, of course, once that comes out, whenever it does, we'll be covering it here on the channel. I don't actually know. I should look and see if there's like a trailer or something. If there is, and I haven't reacted to it yet, I should get on that. Okay, here we're using our Pokemon communication. I'd love to be able to find a Magnezone and really cinch up my game plan here. Although, to be fair, I can simply attack with Marshadow and then follow up with even one of Magneton's attacks on the next turn, right? And that would be enough to KO the Aerodactyl here. As always, as with a lot of the Magnezone decks we've been playing lately, this is a non-EX build, which is very nice because it does mean that your opponent has to KO 3 of your Pokemon, not just 2 of them. It's funny, right? Like, I mean, Darkrai aside, you consider the rest of, like, Magnezone, Greninja, and Druddigon and all that stuff, and it's actually, like, astonishingly easy to play a no-EX deck in this meta. It almost makes EX Pokemon feel like a liability. I kind of had that thought process when I was playing this deck, and also the next deck we're going to cover is yet another one with no EX Pokemon. We also recently covered Hitmonlee Magnezone, which also doesn't play any EX Pokemon. Playing all these decks recently makes me almost feel like, in this meta in particular, like, playing an EX is almost a liability, right? Like, I think Darkrai remains one of the exceptions where it's so good that it's worth it to play even as an EX. And even that's mostly because a lot of what Darkrai can do is from the bench. And you don't have to have it in the active slot where it risks getting, you know, battled over. I've had many games against Darkrai decks where, you know, I have to battle through Druddigon after Druddigon, or like Greninja or Magnezone, or like Druddigon plus Magnezone and then get to Darkrai, you know? Anyway, we're able to outpace our opponent here and cinch the win. Alright, going into our last game here. This opponent's going to be on an Infernape deck. It's going to be a little bit of a weird Infernape deck, I'll tell you that. I mean, they are on, you know, the Infernape line in Moltres, but they're also playing some colorless, like, seemingly random colorless Pokemon. So I don't really know what's going on with that, but Hey, colorless Pokemon often have a fighting weakness, so I will definitely not complain about that. You know what's funny is, like, this is actually a deck where you kind of want to wait before placing your initial Pokemon down. Like, if I really cared, I would wait maybe a little bit longer, because especially with a hand like this, it really matters whether you put Hitmonchan or Hitmonlee as your first active. Like, if your opponent plays two, one in the active, one on the bench, then you'd have more incentive to play the Hitmonlee in the active slot. Whereas it'd be the other way around for Hitmonchan. Yeah, see, here they're leading with Jigglypuff. But they're on fire energy, and they've got the Infernape mat. And then, yeah, here's Chimchar confirming rather, that they are on the Infernape line. So, maybe they're on Wigglytuff EX as well. I guess maybe the idea is that you can Moltres to ramp your colorless Pokemon as well as Infernape. It's not a bad idea, but I think it ends up being a little bit much all happening in the same deck, personally, in my opinion. But yeah, this opening is not bad here that we have. We got Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, and Magnemite. Can't ask for too much more than that. X-Speed Cyrus being some more conditional cards that may come up. I'm not playing my second Magnemite just yet. I want to leave that open in case I draw a Marshadow. I'd rather have that down. Or if I draw a second Magneton first, then I could consider playing Magnemite. Getting another Hitmonlee here. I'm just going to start putting energy on Hitmonchan and jabbing this Jigglypuff. Can't one-shot it, but we'll be able to two-shot it. They put energy on Chimchar there, which kind of tells me that they probably have, yep, Monferno and Infernape in hand already, if they're just going to directly build up the Chimchar instead of putting energy on the Moltres here. Alright, so they're going for Pokeball plus Professor's Research, so they have a basic, an Infernape, and then two unknown cards in hand. The basic's probably either a second Chimchar or a second Moltres if I had to get. Actually, I think I know what it is. It's not something that I would anticipate it to be. But yeah, they're just going to pass back over to me again here. Professor's Research is a pretty good draw. Definitely would like to see what else is on top of my deck. Finding Magnezone and Pokeball. Still no Magneton yet. Just getting a little annoying, but we have the time. Here's Marshadow. I'm glad to have Marshadow to get that online. Yeah, with Marshadow, what I like to do is, you know, set it up with one energy and then just kind of leave it. Because you can just put the second energy on whenever you switch in after something gets KO'd, right? When you actually go to use the revenge attack. So, I don't always do it during the same turn, but that is more convenient if that's feasible. But just playing Marshadow and then having it with one energy and the bench is ready to go is very nice. Yeah, so Apom. I think Apom is what they found off their Pokeball there. And again, I don't think that using colorless Pokemon, you know, in a Moltres strategy is a bad idea. I just don't know why Apom and Ambipom in particular. That seems a little bit weird to me, but... so here I'm going to bring in that Marshadow. The Revenge won't be enough to KO Infernape here, but we do have a Cyrus in hand, meaning that we can potentially, with Magnezone at a later point, just KO the Infernape at a later time and, you know, at our leisure, so to speak. Yeah, putting that second energy on Marshadow, and then Revenge for 100. We could also just Cyrus it back in with the other Marshadow here as well. Okay, they're playing a second Chimchar. And I think they just end up putting another energy directly on the Infernape. Oh, they evolve here. That's right, they do actually have the Ambipom. Yeah, this is me reading it. Double hit. They flip 2 coins, deal 40 for each heads. It's like Marowak, but halved, basically. Yeah, they're completely foregoing their Moltres and just setting up the Infernape because they're in the gameplay loop here. It makes sense. Alright, I just needed one of these to be Tails, really. So that way I didn't get one shot here. Alright, finding another Cyrus. So I'll put another energy on my benched Marshadow, getting that set up. And I decide to Cyrus in the Infernape here. And I think what I'm going to do is just attack it with the Marshadow, right? Because now we can set it down to 30. If they really want to burn 2 more, no pun intended, burn 2 more fire energy, KOing an already half damaged Marshadow, I'm completely fine with that. And now, even if they choose to retreat, we can still just bring in Hitmonlee and KO Infernape that way. Basically, I've just got the game won here, because I already have 1 point from that Jigglypuff earlier, and I've set myself up in a situation where I'm going to KO this Infernape next turn no matter what. Yeah, so they decide to ultimately retreat their Infernape. But I think they're realizing now that they might be screwed. No, they're just... Wait, no, they're not conceding. They're just going for the Ambipom attack. Okay, maybe they don't realize. We actually... 2 tails. I didn't even care if my Marshadow got knocked out at this point, because I need to bring in my Hitmonlee anyway, but it's okay. We have next speed, as well as enough energy to just retreat anyway. Yeah, so we'll retreat the Marshadow, bring in Hitmonlee, and Hitmonlee himself is going to secure the W by KOing the Infernape. Good way to end the video. So thank you everybody so much for watching this deck profile. As I've announced recently, we got YouTube Partner recently, so thank you for that support here on this channel. Please consider subscribing if you'd like to see more Pokemon, Pocket, or other TCG gaming content, as I do tend to upload very regularly, about every other day usually. But yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this one. So this is Hexlex. I am signing out. And also, I'm hoping that you have yourself a fantastic day.